It's been nearly 4 decades since Social Security received its last major overhaul, but that could be about to change. A new bipartisan piece of legislation is currently making its way through Congress, and at the same time, a watchdog group has issued a stark warning that Social Security hasn't been in this dire of a situation since 1983. We're going to cover everything you need to know about these developments. But first, I want to share an opportunity for those of you looking to earn some passive income. If you check the pinned comment below or the description box, you'll find a link to sign up for Capital One 360 Checking. They're currently running a promotion that could put $300 in your pocket. All you need to do is open an account and make 2 separate deposits of at least $500 each. These deposits can be anything from your Social Security check to your pension or regular paycheck. What makes Capital One 360 Checking particularly attractive is that there are no major fees and no minimum balance requirements, unlike many other banking institutions. The link is waiting for you in the pinned comment and description box. I may receive a commission if you use it, which I genuinely appreciate, and as always, terms and conditions apply. Now, let's get into what's happening with Social Security. A watchdog group has come forward with a troubling assessment, confirming that the program hasn't been in this precarious of a position since 1983. Back then, Social Security was racing toward insolvency, just as it is today. Recent reports project that sometime between 2031 and 2032, the Social Security Trust Fund will become insolvent. When that happens, we're looking at automatic benefit cuts across the board, ranging from 20% to 26%. For the average Social Security retiree, that translates to a cut of approximately $500 per month. According to Fortune, Social Security is hurtling toward a fiscal cliff, and if left unaddressed, this will force an automatic 22% benefit cut for tens of millions of retirees, survivors, and their dependents in just 6 years. This stark warning comes from the release of last week's 2026 Social Security Trustees Report. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a nonpartisan fiscal watchdog, found that the program's financial imbalance has reached its most severe point in nearly 5 decades, and that lawmakers' inaction is making a bad situation measurably worse. The watchdog group put it bluntly, stating that Social Security is on a collision course toward insolvency. If policymakers fail to act, they will effectively be supporting a 22% benefit cut for all retirees, survivors, and their dependents in just 6 years. The program hasn't been this close to insolvency since 1983, when President Ronald Reagan and Speaker Tip O'Neill famously put partisanship aside to safeguard Social Security, at least for the time being. The numbers are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, which is the primary fund that pays retirement benefits, is now projected to run dry in 2032, 1 year sooner than last year's estimate. If disability insurance reserves are included, the theoretically combined trust funds will be exhausted in 2034, triggering a 17% across-the-board cut. The 75-year actuarial shortfall has ballooned to 4.42% of taxable payroll, the largest since 1977. In present value terms, that's equivalent to $31 trillion, roughly the size of the entire U.S. economy. This deterioration is being driven by lower fertility rates, a decline in immigration, and unfunded spending in recent legislation. The gap has grown by 16% in a single year, jumping from the 3.82% shortfall projected in last year's report. To put this in perspective, the program's deficit is now 2.3 times as large as it was in 2010. What does this mean in practical terms? If lawmakers wanted to make the trust fund solvent immediately, they would need to increase payroll taxes by 4.42%. Currently, the Social Security payroll tax portion that flows into the trust fund is 12.4%. Raising it by an additional 4.42% would bring the total payroll tax rate to nearly 17%. For someone earning $100,000 per year who works as an independent contractor and pays the entire 12.4%, they're currently contributing around $12,400 into the trust fund. If that were increased to nearly 17%, they would be paying $17,000 annually. For a typical W-2 employee, you're only paying half of that at 6.2%, with your employer matching the other half. With this increase, you'd be paying an additional 2.21% to make the trust fund solvent. That's one option currently on the table. The outlook over the next decade is equally sobering. Social Security will spend $3.8 trillion more than it collects. Annual deficits are projected to grow from 2.7% of taxable payroll today to 6.6% by 2100, driven by an aging population, growing benefit generosity, and revenues that simply won't keep pace. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has repeatedly insisted the administration will not touch benefits or raise taxes to address these shortfalls. In other words, they don't plan on doing anything. The problem with this approach is that if they don't act, an automatic benefit cut will occur regardless. If you choose not to cut benefits or raise taxes today, a benefit cut will automatically take place anyway. The decision, in effect, will be made for them come 2031 or 2032. The window for action is closing rapidly. Lawmakers still have options, but the menu is shrinking fast. If Congress acts today, they could restore long-term solvency through a 34% payroll tax increase, a 25% cut in total benefits, or a 30% reduction for new beneficiaries. If they wait until 2034, those numbers jump significantly. They'd be looking at a 40% tax increase or a 29% benefit cut for everyone. Cutting benefits for new beneficiaries alone would become mathematically impossible to close the gap, even if those benefits were eliminated entirely. Reforms that once seemed like silver bullets have lost their potency. Eliminating the payroll tax cap, currently set at $184,500 in wages, would now only close about half of the solvency gap, according to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Even if they raised the cap on the amount that flows into the trust fund through taxation, it would still only close half the gap. They would still need to implement other measures, such as cutting benefits for some people, possibly raising the retirement age, or a combination of approaches. We'll have to wait and see what direction they choose. On a more positive note, there's actually a bipartisan piece of legislation currently in Congress that could expand and improve Social Security benefits for millions of beneficiaries. According to Reuters, a proposal in Congress could bring the most significant changes in decades to supplemental security income, a federal program that supports low-income seniors and people with disabilities. The legislation is called the SSI Restoration Act. It was introduced in March of this year, and lawmakers say it aims to modernize a system that many experts argue no longer reflects today's economic reality. If passed, the bill would raise benefit levels, loosen strict financial limits, and expand eligibility, potentially affecting millions of Americans. One of the most notable provisions in the bill would adjust how earned income affects SSI benefits. Currently, recipients can earn only $65 per month before their benefits begin to decrease significantly. Under the proposal, that threshold would be increased to $512 per month. The non-work income exclusion would rise from $20 to $158. Supporters say these changes would allow recipients to work part-time without losing benefits as quickly, encouraging greater financial independence, which I think would be a tremendous benefit. The bill also targets SSI's strict asset limits. Right now, individuals can't have more than $2,000 and couples can't have more than $3,000 in assets. Under this proposal, those limits would increase to $10,000 for individuals and $20,000 for couples. Lawmakers say this change would allow recipients to maintain modest savings for emergencies without risking the loss of benefits. I believe this would also be a wonderful improvement. Another key provision would link SSI payments to 100% of the federal poverty level, potentially raising monthly benefits. The legislation also addresses what critics call a marriage penalty. Currently, couples receiving SSI receive only slightly more than individuals. The bill proposes setting benefits for couples at twice the individual rate, which would increase total household support significantly. Under existing law, financial help from family, such as free housing, can actually reduce SSI benefits right now. The new bill would eliminate this rule, allowing recipients to receive assistance from relatives without penalties. Additionally, it would expand SSI benefits to U.S. territories as well. There's a lot to unpack in this bill, and many of these provisions could represent real improvements to Social Security and SSI for the first time in roughly 4 decades. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this new legislation. Are you in support of it? Do you think lawmakers will actually pass it? Leave your comments below and let me know what you think. That's all for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.